So today is Sunday, January 27th, 2019. This is the third and final day of our January non-residential session here at Endless Path Zendo. And today we will look at case 35 in the Wumenkon, gateless barrier, Wumenkon in Japanese. Which is the true Ch'ien? Utsu asked a monk, the woman Ch'ien and her spirit separated. Which is the true Ch'ien? So, the story of Ch'ien appears in various Chinese books of ghosts. That one sentence, that's the whole case. But here's the background we need. This story appears in various books of ghost stories and is as follows. In a place called Hanyang lived a man called Chang Qian, whose youngest daughter Chen was very beautiful and the pride of her father. He also had a handsome nephew named Wang Chao, and Chang Qian, as a joke, used to say they, when they were grown, would make a fine married couple. The two people, however, took this jesting seriously and thought of themselves as engaged, being in love with one another. When Chen grew up, a man of rank asked for her in marriage. Her father decided to comply with the offer, and tragedy could not be avoided. Chen was deeply distressed, and Chao, angered and grieving, resolved to leave home and go to another province. The next day, he got a boat ready for his journey, and after sunset, without bidding farewell to anyone, he proceeded up the river. But in the middle of the night, he was startled by a voice calling to him, "Wait, it is I." And he saw a girl running along the bank toward the boat. It was Chen. Chao was unspeakably delighted. Chen sprang into the boat, and the lovers found their way safely to the province of Chu. There they lived happily for 6 years and had 2 children. Chen, however, could not forget her parents and often longed to see them again. So they decided to return and ask for her parents' forgiveness. When they arrived at the father's house, her husband went first into the house and apologized to the father for taking his daughter far away from home and begged him to forgive them. "What is the meaning of all this?" exclaimed the father. "Who is this woman?" "This is Chen," replied Chao. "Nonsense," said her father. "When you went away, Chen became ill and has been in bed for all these 6 years. That's not Chen at all." Chao went back to the boat and brought Chen back to the house. Being told of this, the Chen, lying in bed, arose and went toward her, and the 2 Chens became one. Zhang said that after Chao had left, his daughter never spoke and lay there as if in a stupor. The spirit must have gone from her body. Chen said that she hadn't known her body was in the house. When she felt Chao's love and saw him go, she had followed him as if in a dream, but after that remembered nothing. Wu Men's commentary. If you realize the true one, then you'll know that emerging from one husk and entering another is like a traveler putting up at an inn. If this is not clear, don't rush about wildly. When you suddenly separate it into earth, water, fire, and air, you'll be like a crab dropped into boiling water, struggling with your 7 arms and 8 legs. Don't say I didn't warn you. Wumen's verse, the moon and the clouds are ever the same, different from each other, the mountain and the valley. How wonderful, how blessed is this one? Is this two? This is a particularly valuable koan for lay practitioners. No monks, no nuns, no teachers, no students, just ordinary people in the ordinary mess of a quite ordinary life. Yet, right here is exactly where each of us must resolve. The mystery of true wholeness, not out in some special Zen world. Otherwise, what's the point? Every day we find ourselves challenged on this very issue. Which is the true me? Is the true one the one out shopping at Wegmans or the one vowing to save all beings in the Zendo? Is it the one at a baseball game with their daughter or the one dreaming of an upcoming session? Is it the one earning a living at a complex, demanding job, or the one aiming for liberation and the welfare of all beings? Is it the one sitting in the Zendo, quietly, seemingly unperturbed, or that very same one sitting there toying with various ideas? Is it the one trying to get out of a changing and difficult situation, or the one accepting that difficulty fully? What about both, or neither? And so on, the question remains, which is the true one? Or we might say, the real one. Is the real one the one who does it, or the one who doesn't, whatever it might be? Is it the mind that knows joys and sorrows, plans and dreams? Or is it the body that laughs and cries, feels heat, cold, pain, eats and sleeps? Is one of these the true one? If you say, I'd say that the one who wants to save all beings, the one who yearns for enlightenment, is the deepest and so truest one. You've gone astray. You'd have missed reality by ignoring your actual, daily, trivial thoughts, the ones that take us through the 6 realms of conditioned existence every day. If you say the real one is not the ideal we aspire to, but the ordinary, everyday, living, breathing, doing, and dealing with things as they are one, that's the realist. The other, made of hopes, aspirations, and ideals, is a dream and so unreal. Then you've also gone astray. How could you ignore the reality of your own deepest aspiration? If you say both, that's just putting separate pieces together. How is that wholeness, the real you? Nor is it neither. That would be making emptiness into a thing, but emptiness is empty of even emptiness. If you pick one side, it won't work. If you suppress a side to make do or accept, it won't work. In short, if you say mind, you're stuck. For what about body? If you say body is the real you, what about hopes, fears, dreams, desires, aspirations? Which is the really real you? What can you expect from Zen practice if you are not now practicing as the real you? Do people shave their heads, put on robes, and quit the world to be real? Or do people not do these things so as to be authentic? Transmission case number 4 of the Denkaroku, Transmission of the Light, a Japanese Soto collection that traces the path of Dharma transmission from Shakyamuni Buddha to Koan Ejo, who was one teacher beyond Dogen Kigen, goes like this. Upagupta, the 4th ancestor, attended the Venerable Sanavasa for 3 years then finally shaved his head and became a monk. Sanavasa asked him, "Has your body or mind left home?" The master replied, "Truly, it is my body that has left home." Shanavasa said, "What has the sublime truth of the Buddhas to do with body or mind?" On hearing this, the master underwent great realization. What is real? What is the essence? Is there such a thing? An essential person, unchanging and real? Or is there only the changing? And now I'm 6 years old. Now I'm 80. Now I'm into stamp collecting. Now I'm into collecting Buddhas. Now I'm looking for a job. Now I'm retired. Now I'm crossing a river. Now I'm flying in an airplane. Is this approaching Dogen's profound being time, or are we on Pinocchio's road, simply wanting to no longer be wooden puppets, but real boys and girls? Maybe we're drawn or find ourselves pulled toward Zen practice because we've seen, to one degree or another, how unreal our life often is, how unreal and inauthentic we ourselves can be. Help, we might say. Buddhas, bodhisattvas, help me find reality and escape from this world of illusion, greed, selfishness, stupidity, and endless change. It is so painful always being split, never whole, never truly, simply, and naturally authentic. There's a veil between me and others, a distance I can't seem to get around, under, or over. How to be whole? Well, what makes us unwhole? Perhaps we should start there. What is our problem? And if we're not whole from the beginning, how could wholeness be something we later acquire? The writer Peter Matheson, who later in life became a Zen teacher and who died fairly recently, wrote in The Snow Leopard about a visit to a lama in Dolpo, whose hermitage had been precariously built into the side of a sheer cliff. The lama had arthritic or paralyzed legs that made it impossible for him to negotiate the climb it would take to leave his hermitage. It was a little monastery or temple, actually. Matheson asked the lama if, given that, he felt trapped there, because it was clear that with those withered legs, he'd never be able to leave. In response, the lama burst into laughter and said something to the effect that, "No, I'm happy here, precisely because I cannot leave." Was he just making peace with his circumstances? Was he making lemonade when life gave him lemons? Matheson's question and the lama's answer goes to the heart of our koan. Here's a little bit on background from Aitken Roshi. If koans are the folks, and this is from The Gateless Barrier, the Mumenkan, translated and with a commentary by Robert Aitken Roshi. If koans, he says, are the folk stories of Zen, then here we have a folk story as a koan. That whole story of Ch'ien, which is the real one, the ghost story of her spirit being separated, the body lying there and the spirit going off, wandering, living. As such, it is not unique in our study. Case 42, Manjushri and the Young Woman in Samadhi is another. But that is a Buddhist folk story, while this case emerges straight from lay Chinese secular tradition. The teacher who placed the story before his students was Wu Tzu, whose name, Goso in Japanese, whose name means fifth ancestor. Don't confuse him with the traditional fifth ancestor who lived in the 7th century. This Wutsu lived in the Sung period at Mount Wutsu, and during his time was greatly revered. He was the teacher of Wan Wu, the editor of the Blue Cliff Record, and Wu Men himself was directly in his line several generations later. Like Non Chuan, he appears in the Gateless Barrier 4 times, Wu Tzu does. As a young man, Wu Tzu studied Buddhist philosophy, and one day a fellow student challenged their teacher with the words, "If subject and object are one, how can that fact be realized?" The teacher responded, "It is like drinking water and knowing personally whether or not it is warm or cold." Wu Tzu said to himself, "I know about warm and cold, but I don't know about personally." His teacher could not explain it to him and suggested that he take up Zen practice. Accordingly, he wandered from temple to temple, finally settling in the assembly of Payun, Hakun. One day he heard the master give the following Teisho. There are several Zen monks from Mount Lu who have Lu Shan, Lu Mountain, from Mount Lu, Ryozan in Japanese, who have had Satori. If you have them speak, they give beautiful talks. If you ask them regarding koans, they answer clearly. If you ask them to write pithy commentaries, they do so nicely. Yet they have not attained it. Utsu was dumbfounded by this. Ultimately, though, he realized it personally and tangibly. The present case is grounded on that personal and tangible vantage. So Wutsu put together this case, which is the true Ch'ien, Ch'ien and her spirit separated. Which is the true Ch'ien? Wu Men's commentary. If you realize the true one, then you'll know that emerging from one husk and entering another is like a traveler putting up at an inn. If this is not clear, don't rush about wildly. When you suddenly separate into earth, water, fire, and air, you'll be like a crab dropped into boiling water, struggling with your 7 arms and 8 legs. Don't say, "I didn't warn you." Wu Men's point. If you get to the bottom of this, realize what this is about, you'll have peace in the midst of life's countless changes. You'll know the essence of how to live when things happen, which includes experiencing loss, grief, illness, and death. That's what he's talking about when he says when you suddenly separate into earth, water, fire, and air. He's saying when your body returns to its constituents, when you die. Well, to be able to accept and work with all of that freely, that sounds like something worth the frustration, anxiety, commitment, and plain old effort that Zen practice realization requires. Wu Men adds, don't say, "I didn't warn you." I take his words to heart. It's easy enough when things are going well to think, sure, no problem. When death comes, I'll be able to face it. It's only natural. But that horrific image of a crab in boiling water, struggling with all its arms and legs, raises a frightening doubt. His graphic words are not meant to be cruel. He's not showing off a literary skill. He just means it. He's saying, look, death is no joke. In some ways, our whole life is preparation for our last breath. And one thing is for sure, it is coming. Wu Men is compassionately encouraging us, saying, whatever you've got, whatever you think you've got or don't think you've got, Don't stick there. Let go. Keep going. There's more yet to come. Practice on and keep going. Shakyamuni himself is still only halfway there. It's an encouragement and it's also a test. He's trying to make sure that we do our best, that we do not give up and let ourselves down. Wu Men's verse: the moon and the clouds are ever the same, different from each other, the mountain and the valley. How wonderful, how blessed is this one, is this two? How could moon and clouds, one bright, the other, well, cloudy, be the same? Aren't they totally different? How do we personalize this? Some people get stuck, hooked on it's all one, equality, sameness, that's it. Alas, if we're all the same, we're all one, why go to the dentist? Couldn't I drill your teeth for you for a lot less money? Why not have me build your house? I'm cheaper than a carpenter. Well, I can tell you why. So no, I wouldn't recommend it. What is Uman getting at with clouds and moon ever the same? What is the ground of genuine equality? Then, different from each other, the mountain and the valley. Another important point we must realize and clarify, not just in the Zendo or in the Doksan room, but in life. Absolutely as essential as the first, different from each other, the mountain and valley. In fact, it may be another way of saying the same thing as the first. Only because of essential sameness can there be great variety, true difference. Oh, that unique moon. Wow! Such a never before seen silver cloud. Finally, he brings it all around and sums it up. How wonderful, how blessed. Yeah, isn't it terrific to know that's where he comes out? How do we get to this so that it's not just words in a poem? Those are nice words, that's great. How do we get really to this so that it's our reality? How wonderful, how blessed. We can admire the poem, but they give us a little touch of something. It's true, but how do we live this? To really experience and live from this. How wonderful, how blessed. This world of sameness and difference, and yet, how often things can feel like anything but wonderful and blessed. How often may we find our days filled with anxiety, limitation, disturbance, not to mention injustice and malice. What do wonderful and blessed mean? Should we just ignore the painful things that are really out there and the difficulty of human life to resolve this? Just close our eyes to it? Somehow, that doesn't seem like a very useful solution, does it? To be true to ourselves, we must realize our own mind, not someone else's, and mind, not intellect, not thoughts. Wu Men makes use of an old Chinese ghost novel to present us with the case of a woman torn by societal conflicts, youth versus age, wealth and power versus love, and finally of wholeness gained or regained. Wu Men takes a contemporary ghost story of his time, like it would have been for the Chinese of the time, like a popular movie today, and turns it into a koan with the potential to transform and awaken us. He wants us to find an answer so that in the midst of life's actual dilemmas, we too can finally live with grace and ease. What could be more blessed, more wonderful? How do we step out of our own ghost story and be whole? Yet Wu Men won't leave us even there. He won't let us settle down thinking we're someplace we're not. As Bob Dylan says in Dear Landlord, and anyone can fill up their lives with things they can see, but they just cannot touch. At the end, Wu Men puts us back on the fire. He takes it away again. Is this one, or is this two? What is he up to in that oddly devilish way of his? Why is he making us squirm after we got so much nice stuff in that poem? Making us squirm, as he so deftly puts it in another verse in The Gateless Barrier. Even serenity for Wu Men isn't enough. He won't let us rest on top of the mountain enjoying that beautiful view. He gets us up and going again, all the way up to and then right off the very top. He's checking. Can we live with peace in the midst of conflict and change? Is this one? Is this two? A small bit of insight, a one-sided realization won't carry us through. A humorous Japanese verse, a senru, goes like this. Mr. Everything is empty is hauled off to the police station. You can't go to a restaurant, order a meal, and when the bill comes, simply say, everything's empty, and get up and leave. You'll get hauled off to jail. If we're not meeting the circumstances of our life, we can't escape into emptiness as a way of getting ourselves off the hook. That's the proverbial jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire. Still, there really is a way to be whole and no longer fragmented. In short, a way to be real. The way, with a capital W. To walk the way. As this is so, it's up to each of us to do all we can to find that way, to enter that way, and make it intimately our own. When I originally worked on this koan, it was with Kapla Roshi, and we worked from the Japanese translation into English rather than from the Chinese that Eiken Roshi I found later on quite preferred. After all, the source is Chinese, not Japanese, and these guys in the koans were Chinese too. The title of the case in the English translation from the Japanese version was Sei and Her Soul Are Separated, not which is the true Ch'ien, but Sei, it's the Japanese for Ch'ien, Sei and her soul, Sei, S-E-I, and her soul are separated. The Chinese again is which is the true Ch'ien. The emphasis with Sei and her soul are separated is a bit different, and it has its own poignancy and accuracy. We know that separated condition very well, terribly well. But what is it to be whole? That's what grabs us in the case. What is it to be real and whole when what we typically experience is separation? What Christianity calls the fall. Actually, the Hebrew word nephesh, which is translated in the King James Bible, the most highly regarded version of the Christian Bible, which combines the New Testament with the original Torah, turning the Hebrew text into an Old Testament, it takes the word nephesh and translates it as soul. And so we have a Bible that's the most popular version in English referring to soul all the time. Sei and her soul are separated. But it really doesn't mean soul in Hebrew. It means life breath. Say and her life breath are separated. Now we return to the realm of practice. This breath, this count, this koan is where we exist right now for real. How can we be separated? And yet, how can we be whole? Persist, persist in healing Sei, in uncovering the true Ch'ien. We heal ourselves and all beings. How is that? The first, actually the introductory case of Denkoroku, transmission of the light, goes like this. Shakyamuni Buddha saw the morning star and was enlightened, and he said, I and the great earth and all beings simultaneously achieve the way. Together with all beings, we practice realization of the way. This way is not far off, but intimate. It is our personal realization of essential nature, the root of the whole and well, real you and real me. It is coming home. The two Ch'iens are one. You don't have to make them one. And real oneness does not wipe away the wonderfully unique particulars of each and every different thing. Not at all. And lucky for us, all we have to do is realize it. When we do, for an instant at least, the delusion of separation that plagues us fades. As Dogen says, in such intimacy the 10,000 things step in and are us, confirming the self. Ch'ien gets up, gets out of bed, hugs her kids, her husband and her dad. She makes a pot of tea and starts her day. We'll close with Hakuin's verse on this koan, which he titles Ch'ien and her spirit separate. And he presents the case like this. Ch'ien and her spirit separated. Which is the true Ch'ien? Which is the real Ch'ien? So these are his verses. Wang Zhou and wife have returned by boat to see Chang Yi. Chang's house is in an uproar, people rushing madly about. One Ch'ien comes ashore, leading a little boy by the hand. Another Ch'ien gussies up and dashes outside to greet her. A dark pearl in the red water, belching out a purplish mist. A gem is suddenly set out on a tray, ungettable, inescapable. Many people draw swords and stand poised upon the stairs. Ch'ien's old father is clad in tattered, threadbare garments. Wang's mother has on a shabby skirt, many sizes, too small. Everyone enjoys the rollicking at the Autumn Shrine Festival. By nightfall, the befuddled celebrants are staggering around. Stirred by autumn breeze, bamboo leaves glitter in the sun. Under a new moon, dewdrops on the pines gleam like gems. One pilgrim, sad to find he's separated from his native land, remembers a beautiful lady he has never entirely forgotten. We'll stop here and recite our great vows for all.